Welcome to the Smack Happy Design videocast, where we explore all things web and marketing. With your hosts, Nicole and Danielle.
Hi, welcome to the Smack Happy videocast, episode number 12. Today we have Akeisha Johnson with us from An Inspired Story, and she is a leadership and performance coach. Welcome, Akeisha.
Hi, ladies. Good to be with you.
Can you give us a little intro about yourself?
Yeah, so leadership performance coach. I started officially coaching just about 4 years ago, and I started because I had put myself in a management training program. It was a 2-year program, and within that program, I had set up the foundations for my nonprofit program called the Oshun Project. And it was a sustainability project to put clean water in rural Haiti using sustainability technology. Before that, I had never done any kind of work like that. I usually like to share with people that I'm not Haitian in origin, but I was really interested in the history of Haiti. In the past, I danced with a dance troupe local here in San Francisco called Alafia that did Haitian dance. So I always had an interest in it, and I'm a bit of a Francophile. So, after the earthquake, and I started doing a lot of personal development work on myself, and I had always wanted to do some kind of altruistic work. I usually like to tell the story that when I was a kid, the song "We Are the World" was like a really, really big song. And I took that song to heart. If anyone knows the lyrics of the song, the lyrics are, we are the world, we are the children, we are the ones to make a brighter day, so let's start giving, right? And I just took that kind of thing to heart. So I always knew I wanted to do something in the world to give back to people. And if you remember the images from We Are the World, they had a lot of like sick African children, flies and everything. We've learned that there's some things problematic with that imagery, but it was impactful for me. And I very much was like, oh, those kids look like me. And I want to make a difference for kids like that. And so I always kind of had that seed inside of me. And so when I put myself into my training program called the Team Management Leadership Program, I was really pretty passionate about delivering it. And it took a lot for me to do it, but there are things that I learned about team dynamics, having people work together and delivering on something that you haven't delivered on. And I did a pretty good job pulling that together, considering that my nonprofit project was something that was a little bit of a stretch from what other people were doing. So I want to be responsible. I was kind of intense, right? Like I was working full time. I was building a nonprofit program. I was trying to work out every day. I was just like ridiculous. I was a crazy beast. But from that, I learned some really effective tools on managing people, because I was managing people in Washington, D.C., Boston, Haiti, Miami, San Francisco, and that took something. And me delivering that, I saw some really effective practices for that. And I wanted to pass it to the world, because I really have a belief that so many people spend time at work, and work is such a big, big part of your experience. You want to have the experience of it being fulfilling, and you having a lot of wins at work. And really having a lot of wins means that you're working with other people. And I believe, if people are winning, the world is operating in a better way. So that's what had me get into it. That's what had me join BNI. And, there's nothing like working with people who really want to deliver a great service or a great product to the world, and empowering them to use all the resources, i.e. people in their lives, so that they can fulfill on it, because everyone has a really extraordinary experience when that happens. So that's how I got into it. And yeah, those are the kind of people I like working with.
Awesome. That's really inspiring.
Yeah. Very.
Yeah.
You were doing it all.
Woo. just not at the same time.
Yeah, and then throwing working out into the mix is like, what were you thinking?
I was a
That'd
crazy
be like, for me, that's like on the lowest part of my priorities.
Mhm.
Can I share something about that?
Yeah.
So, I'm very human, right? And that's like one of the biggest things I talk to people about in leadership. It's like, you really want to accept your humanity. And, with me working out, it's about my vanity. And, I'm always doing work on myself, right? As a coach, like, your job is to do the work that you have other people doing and expand it, right? And so I'm always doing it. And in preparing for this today, I looked at the camera, make sure that like I had like a good hairstyle and my lip gloss, but I'm going to tell you that I like spent a good 30-40 minutes trying to make sure I positioned this just right so I could be satisfied with my appearance. So yeah, I work out. I was just like, God, my sense of vanity. I think I've gotten over that hurdle, but I guess not.
It's okay. It's all good. I have my eyelashes on today.
I was admiring your makeup. I was like, yes.
I wanted to test out the magnetic ones, and they are pretty cool.
Is that what you have on?
Yeah, I have really sensitive skin. So I was just telling actually Nicole before we started our podcast that I was trying these out on a whim. I was going through the drugstore and just this year's my yes year, I'm saying to myself, so I'm just doing whatever I feel like doing within reason. So I was like, you know what, I want those, I'm going to try them, I put them on, I'm going to use them in the video cast, and it's going to be great.
Well, you look like you have little butterflies on your eyes, so I love it.
Yeah, it makes me feel very feminine, I think.
And in the line of being vain, I'm just glad you can't see the pimple that's on my face. So
I wouldn't have known it was there if you didn't say it.
all right, we all go through this.
We do.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's a human thing, right?
Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and dive in. Can you tell us, are there maybe 2 or 3 things that you would want all leaders to know?
2 or 3?
We saw that kind of trickle to the top.
Well, it's funny, right? Because initially when preparing for this, I think we talked about quotes, and I'm like a big quote person, right? Like I jot down quotes and all that stuff all the time. One of the ones that I really like, it's from Dwight Eisenhower, and he says, motivation is getting other people to do what you want them to do, and they want to do it, right? Yeah. So the idea is that people are fulfilling on your intentions because they have a desire to do it. And the idea behind that really in the area of leadership and coaching is you want to have people have a sense of agency and ownership with what is happening within a group or a project. So, and that is going to motivate them, empower them forward. And a lot of leaders, well, they're not leaders, right? Or managers or bosses or directors. They're not really leaders, they're bosses. And so they kind of throw out orders on people and without really having a sense of the strength of those people, what's going on in the lives of those people, and some of the ideas that the people might have to fulfill on things, which really might be better or more efficient or more effective than what that boss or manager is throwing out there. So I think it's really important for leaders to understand that you want to have the people who are executing, right? Because employers are really like the producers, right? They're the ones who are actually doing the thing that is the product, the service that is being delivered to your clientele, right? And so they're a really important part of the production process. And leaders, it's important for them to really get, right, that what you want is for people to want to work for you. What you want is for people to be happy about the things that you are asking them to do or you're giving them responsibility for. Because when that happens, it's magical. And in a lot of ways, your job becomes really, really easy. So I think that's a really important aspect for leaders to know. Another one, and it's funny because I think about, I couldn't find it when I was looking for it, right, in preparation for our time together today. But it's a biblical quote. There's also a Native American proverb, so I'm going to paraphrase, right? Sorry, I can't give you something to link up. But it basically is the greatest servant is the greatest leader, right? And, especially we're here in the San Francisco Bay Area, Nicole and I, right? And Danielle, where are you, Danielle?
I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh my God. Oh, I have a team out in Pittsburgh that I worked with on my Oshun project. Some freaking phenomenal people out there.
Nice. Yeah, Pittsburgh is filled with some gems for sure.
It's such a cool town.
It is. It's one of those places that I feel like is, well, now it's getting a little bit more credit. I feel like it's more on those lists now that are saying, you should visit Pittsburgh, give it a chance. It's a really different city. And it's a good experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I'm a fan.
Yeah. I think Pittsburgh is like really cool. Actually, I did the whole tourist thing and everything. It was, I really liked it. What is that called again? When the two rivers join and you can see the line of delineation, right?
Oh, look, this is a test for the Pittsburgher, and I don't know. The Point. There's a place in Pittsburgh called The Point, and that's where the two rivers meet. So I guess that's like a quarter of the way right, but not the right terminology.
It's so cool. It's so cool. It's like Nicole, right? Like in the illustration, it's like if you take two different colors or two different pools of water with color and they come together and they create like this little mid color in between. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's almost like those pictures when you see, and I don't know if these actually are true pictures, but I saw them recently where the Pacific meets the Atlantic Ocean. And then it has sort of like that line. That's what it kind of looks like, aerial view, but like really gross, dark, muddy water versus blue.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same idea. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's not like being in the islands, but it's still just a cool thing to witness.
Yes, it is. But
yeah, back to what I was saying. Yeah, it's like you want to really be service oriented, because like I can say this, when I was in my leadership program, one of the successes that I had is we had to create projections, right? And then we had to fulfill on those projections, right? Which is a big aspect of leadership, right? It's another thing I would put in is knowing, it's like having a scoreboard and making sure that you know where you are on the scoreboard. So for instance, if you're on a sales team, right? And the goal is to generate, in a month, $50,000 in sales, right? And you know that there are like 3 different products that you want to sell. You want to have an idea of the price point of each of those products, right? Everyone has to know that. Everyone has to know how many products you want to sell to reach the goal of the projection, and then constantly count how many of those things are being sold, right? And then to who and to how, right? As far as talking about a scoreboard. And in my program, we had that kind of structure, and we had different levels of leadership, and my team that I worked with, they said, Akeisha, it's time for you to be the leader of the leaders of the team. And I said no, right? Because I was like, I don't want to be a leader. That causes all kind of anxiety and stuff for me being responsible for other people and people looking to me for answers. I just don't want to do that. And the team came to me again and they said, yeah, but Akeisha, you'll be really great. because you're always really great. And I was like, yeah, can I just be great and not be the leader? Right. And I think this happens a lot in work environments too, right? Where people are, at a certain level of employment, and then someone says, we want to give you a promotion, and, because you're doing a good job where you're at. But I said, at the time, I'm doing a good job where I'm at. I don't want to be the leader. And then people came to me and they said, no, you're the one. Like, you don't actually get to choose not to step up because of how you are with everyone on the team. You're going to do great. And from that, I understood, right, because of the way that I was serving the people on the team, that's why the people on the team wanted me to be the leader. And that's something that I share with people who are in leadership positions, because a lot of times they are either promoted into those positions or they assign themselves into those positions, especially as small business owners or entrepreneurs, right? Like, no one is assigning you to be the leader of people. You're doing that yourself, which means that there's a level of responsibility that you want to take on, again, with the idea of being a grand servant. And you want to be the kind of person that people would elect to be their boss, not just it being a circumstantial kind of thing. And what that means is that you want to think about, what can I do to support this person, right? So those are some of the questions that I'll have. What are the opportunities that there are to expand what this person is doing well that is under my leadership? And, how is it that this other person can have this really great experience of being a part of my team? And when you're thinking about those things, those are very service level thoughts and ideas. And really, people who are thinking at those levels, they do great, and they end up having people working under them who won't leave even if they're not making the money that they want to make, who won't leave even if there's inconveniences about what it is that the job is, because they're having the experience of being served, and being served in a great, great way. You said 2 or 3, right? Do we have time for one more?
Sure. Unless you wanted to cover some of the other questions I had on the list.
Okay, well, let's do that.
Yeah. So the next one I had was, are there any particular things that could help a new leader versus an experienced one?
Yeah. Okay. Well, with a new leader, what I find, and this is one of the things that I work with people on, I call it the 4 pillars of effective leadership. And the 4 pillars consist of communication, relationships, strategies, and asking or making requests, right? And the first thing that I usually am working with people on is communication, because communications are usually the biggest area of breakdown among group dynamics. And what I find that a lot of new leaders, what's effective for them is really learning, one, how to communicate effectively and responsibly, right? I think, let me see, Danielle and Nicole, we've all worked for other people, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? We've had bosses, managers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had the experience where you've had a manager or a boss, like, get something from their boss and they come to you and they're just kind of freaked out, like, this has to happen, ah! And you're like, ooh, okay, you're scared, and now I'm scared.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right? That kind of situation where it's like, actually, you have to be responsible in your communication, not to deliver, yes, a sense of urgency, but not that the sky is falling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you don't want to be a Chicken Little that's basically passing on the level of pressure that you have taken on. Like, no, that's not serving your team.
Right.
What would serve your team is for you to share with them information, right? For you to communicate it in a way that is so clear that they know exactly what there is to do. That's the second part of communication that I would say to new managers, is that it's your job that people understand what you're saying. right? It's not that they're supposed to figure you out. No. It's your job. So for instance, if you're talking to someone and their like eyes are glazed over, like, huh? They don't understand you. It's your job to notice that their eyes are glazed over, to look and see, oh, this person has a question, and make sure that any of those questions are answered by you, because it's your responsibility that your communication is delivered. And another thing, like, it's your responsibility to communicate so that people know how to deliver on your expectations. And it's your responsibility to say what your expectations are. So for instance, if you need a report, right? You know, a lot of people do stuff like, all right, I want you to send that report to me by the end of next week, right? And what they really mean is Wednesday. Wednesday's not the end of next week. For some people, the end of next week is Sunday. For some people, it's Friday, right? But if you mean Wednesday, you actually want to say, as a leader, as a manager, I want that report back to me by Wednesday, 6 p.m. And the components that I'm looking for in the report are A, B, C, and D. I would like for you to talk to, this person in the design department and that other person to consult if you have any other additional questions, because I discussed this with them as well, right? Mm-hmm. Like, here is their assistant's email address, like to that level, so that you are taking responsibility for the flow of production the whole way through. And a lot of times managers don't do that. They just kind of say, okay, I want this, not really giving people a lot of instruction or guidance on how they want it delivered and what the expectations are. So like, as a new manager, you being responsible for your communications and you really managing your expectations and the expectations of the people that you're working with. So that's for new managers or leaders.
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel I learned that one maybe a couple years ago, like just setting expectations all around, like for your team, for your clients, for your loved ones, like whoever it is, right? Like setting the expectation makes such a huge difference in communicating and then like also getting the result that you want, I think. So I love that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of us, and I'll throw this out there, I think especially as women, we've been kind of taught this thing where people are supposed to be like reading our minds, because we kind of do that thing. We kind of do that with each other, right? And I think it's part of our nurturing aspect. And I think, women feel a little bit more comfortable being into their intuitive spaces. So we do that and we expect people to intuit us. And it's just not fair. Mm-hmm. And it's not effective. Not really. Like it can be when it's used in tandem with those other things. But like if you're communicating what you want and expect, most people are like, oh, thank God, I don't have to try to figure it out, and they just do it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Danielle, did you want to say something? I don't want to just keep talking.
No, I was actually thinking about just the past experiences that I've had with all different types of leaders, and hearing what you're saying about doing certain things that are more effective over other things, and just kind of reflecting on, wow, like things could have been a lot different in a lot of different situations if someone just was more honest, or thought about something for a second before they reacted, to like the news that they got from their boss to give to you. And it always seems like that there's a lot of pressure on like the middle managers that I've worked with in the past, where like, and I'm thinking in these positions, I wasn't in a management position, I was, I guess, considered sometimes like more of a leader. And so the person would always put that on me, like, hey, I have to do this and it's driving me crazy, and there's all this stuff that's going on, and we're only human, so it's hard not to let your emotions kind of roll with it too. So that's the only other thing that I think of when I'm like, well, so what are some sort of like, I guess, coping mechanisms to kind of get you to count backwards from 10, before you decide how to move forward with things. And for someone who's in that position, who is being, stressed out by one reason or another, and, what are some techniques do you think that could help that person kind of alleviate that?
So I'm going to just put it out there, right? Hire a coach.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, really, right? Like, literally a coach, especially someone who's trained, their job is to be your committed listener.
Yeah.
Right? Like, one of the biggest areas of training that I got as a coach is really fine-tuning my listening. Like, no kidding, right? That it's almost hard for me to walk around in the world as someone who does coaching, because I am coaching. It's a way of being that I walk with. Just like, how some people are just happy, right? That's a way of being. And being a coach is a way of being. And part of that is that you're listening, you hear things, right? Like, there are times I hear people and they say stuff and I'm like, wow, they have no idea that they're telling me a lot about their family dynamics. Like, I actually can hear their relationship with their moms.
Yeah.
And
wow.
But it's part of the training, right? Mm-hmm. And as a coach, it's your job to listen, right? Especially to these managers. And this is partially why I got into it. Because I had people calling me while I did have a full-time job saying, Keisha, will you coach me around this? And I would take their calls. I would make the time, and I started getting in trouble at work. My boss literally pulled me aside and she said to me, I need you to do the job I hired you for, not whatever it is that you're over there doing. And I literally had to say, oh my God, I'm really sorry. I never intended that you would even notice. And then I was like, don't worry. You know what I mean? All these things that you expect for me to do, I'm gonna have them handled. And that was even helpful for her. Right? Here's another thing. Hire a coach, and then you want to be the kind of person that people can say anything to you. That makes such a difference. Like, if you think about Danielle, your work experience that comes to mind, if that manager was someone where you could have said, hey, I don't think that's appropriate for you to say to me, what that would have done for you just to be able to say that to them.
That would have been amazing.
Well, there was a moment when that happened, and then I got fired.
Exactly. Yep.
So learning experience. But I can also say now, fast forward a few years, working with Nicole is a totally different experience. She's a great leader because she leads. I know it's sort of cliche, but she definitely leads by example. And I'm pretty sure she probably knows things about me. Some things that I don't even tell my husband on a day-to-day basis, just goofy, off the wall, I just need to get this off my brain sort of stuff. And then I'm like, okay, back to work, but getting that stuff out of your mind, well, for me, it just sort of puts a lot of things at rest, so it's whenever I get that, I don't know what, she's able to calm me down just by listening to me, there's no action items really that need to happen. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on in here that kind of just needs to come out. And it's really helpful just from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in my training, literally, right? It's distinguished as listening is an act of love.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
I like that.
For sure.
Listening is an act of love, and what it is that we live in a world where most people don't listen to one another.
Yeah.
What they actually do is wait for their turn to talk.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something really quick. It was something that my dad had said to me so many times in my life. he always said, you know, it was really disrespectful not to look someone in the eye. And it was a sign of, you know, bad leadership. Like you just weren't someone who wasn't listening, you know, it was disrespectful. And it wasn't like in a mean way, but I think he was just trying to kind of show me like, you know, in his eyes, how he saw like human decency being, which I thought was it's something that really stuck with me. It was really interesting because in high school, you know, we had these leadership groups and I was a part of them for a couple of years in a row. And the first thing that they always taught was to, you know, make eye contact and really try to connect, you know, with the person when you're talking, and don't talk about yourself too much. Like don't say I, and, you know, different sorts of like little techniques like that. And that sort of thing always stuck with me. I don't know if there's anything to it, but I feel like I always try to make sure I'm looking at somebody when they're talking to me. And it's really funny too, because I feel like when I don't get that back, and you know, in our age of like cell phones and technology and things like that, I'm like, okay, why aren't you looking at me when you're talking to me? This is so disrespectful. And then I start to be like, you know, I get shut down. But I don't know, just thought that was an interesting thing. And I wondered if there was anything to that. Do you think?
Well, I have an opinion about it. I can't really say, you know, I have an opinion about it, again, from what I've learned in my training. And here's the thing. When someone's not looking at you, they're communicating that there's something about you that they can't be with, right?
Yeah.
Or that they're uncomfortable being with you, and it's not necessarily about you. Because if you think about it, something really magical happens when you stop and you really look at someone. Yeah. Right? Like, especially like in dating circles, right? Because again, like as a coach, I've worked with different kind of coaches in different kind of capacity. And when I've done work with like relationship coaching, they say, right, you make eye contact with a potential partner for a certain amount of time. Literally, there are chemicals that are happening in your body, right? The oxytocin, and that's the love chemical. It's also the chocolate chemical, but the oxytocin, right? It starts stirring up, and you start feeling connection with that person just because you're looking at their eyes, right? And here's the thing, because when you really stop and you really look at other people, you start to understand that there really isn't a difference between you and that other person. You're both human beings, right? You're both, you know, sentient beings on this earth, and you have more in common than you don't. And that's what happens when you look into somebody's eyes, especially when you really look. And then when you really look into somebody's eyes, you fall in love with them because you actually see them, right? Remember in the movie Avatar, I'm a big movie person. It was, I see you, right? Remember they would do that? I see you. Mm-hmm. And remember, they went deeper into it. It wasn't just like, I can see you with my eyes, right? Because I have glasses. It was, I actually get who you are as a being. And the whole eye contact thing is another way where you communicate, I'm open and receptive to getting who you are. So, you know, when you say that, I think that that's what your dad is communicating, is that you're saying, and also I'm present with you. Mm-hmm. Because if someone's not looking at you, they're in their heads.
Right.
They're not present.
So I guess essentially like you said, they're still communicating when they're not looking at you, because they're telling you something is off. You know, there's something that's going on that maybe you should investigate. So that's a good point. That's a really good point. And a good way to think about it. So next time I get mad and someone's not looking at me, I'll be like, okay, let's talk about this.
Well, okay, that's perfect, right? Because that has me go towards what I would tell an experienced leader. Okay. Right? And an experienced leader, I would say, remain curious. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes people get to the point where, you know, I got this, I handle this, I'm, you know, especially like if you're high performing, right? Like, you know, you start getting like that, like, hey, I know what I'm doing, right? You start autopiloting. And there's nothing worse than autopiloting, because it means that you're going to miss, like, I guess, the birds swooping in or whatever, right? You're just like, yeah, I got this. So you want to remain curious, and you want to remain somebody who's constantly trying to learn new things. And that's what I hear you saying with that. It's like, instead of you saying, oh, you already know that someone's being disrespectful because they don't look you in the eyes. Now you're going to take on being curious about what's going on for them, that they're not looking you in the eyes. And that's the keys to the kingdom. Because there's nothing more powerful and engaging than someone being curious about you and what's going on with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like,
it feels good when someone asks you things about yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it does. I like when people are interested in, what I'm thinking about or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people feel that way.
awesome. That's awesome.
So I want to start wrapping up, and I want to finish with a fun question. So what inspires you most?
What inspires me? I am really inspired from people who own themselves and have agency over themselves. I joke with my friends. I'm someone who likes to go to the gym and work out, right? I talked about that. But a lot of it is just I just like how it feels in my body. And the gym that I go to has a lot of classes. So I do like dance like classes, and I do Zumba, and I do a class called Pound, and all of that, because I like being in my body. And I usually would tell people about this one lady I would see at the gym all the time, especially when I was going to the gym a lot and I was being crazy. She was an older lady. She had to be at least in her like 50s, maybe 60s, maybe older. And she'd walk around the locker room nude, right? And she had these like long pendulum looking breasts, and she had folds in her belly, and she had these long skinny legs. She had like a flat long butt in the back, right? Like, she didn't look like what you think someone wants to look at walking around naked in the locker room, where you would see other women with their like fancy underwear and they look like, some kind of swimsuit model, like trying to cover themselves up. But this lady with like 3 rolls of like breast and 2 levels of gut and flat long butt and skinny legs would just walk around owning her body. And she was fascinating to me, right? Like, okay, I'm kind of outing myself that I'm like the locker room perv, right? But
hey, you're owning it. I don't know. There you go.
Whatever. But she was fascinating to me because she just owned herself. She owned herself in a way that I would just watch her. And it's not like I necessarily like looking at naked ladies, but I just thought she was fascinating. And it really, it had me go, there's something really compelling about people who just own it, whatever it looks like. And I find that really inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That is very inspiring.
Yes, it is. And it's funny. I keep saying things are funny, but it is funny. I was thinking about like, I kind of feel the same way. I think I feel the same way. It's okay, I guess, to kind of look and be admirable of people who just own themselves. I mean, it's something I've struggled with all my life. I don't think I could ever do that. I would never be comfortable. I would literally be like cringing into like a little raisin, if I had to do that at the gym. And just be, hey, so that's respect. I respect that. I do too.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear you on that.
So thank you so much for joining us, Akeisha. And can you let our audience know how to find you?
Yeah. So my website is www.inspired story.com. And you can reach out there to me. Also, for your audience, if you want to reach out to me directly, you can send me an email. My first name, Akeisha, Akeisha at aninspiredstory.com, and reach out to me. Also, for anyone who's in the San Francisco Bay Area, the 4th Tuesday of every month, I do a talk where you actually kind of get to experience what it's like to be with me, get a little taste of my coaching at Creative IQ Art Studio and Gallery. Shoot, I should have this prepared, but I believe the address is 3496 Balboa in the outer Richmond area of San Francisco. And you can come and join, and we usually have really great conversations and fun. And we play with art and be artistic and creative. So yeah, that's a way to reach me and connect with me.
We'll include all of that in the show notes as well, so people can find you. So again, thank you so much for joining us. This was a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate having you on the show. So thank you for joining the Smack Happy Videocast, where we explore all things web and marketing for small businesses.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, you're welcome. Until next time, right?
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Smack Happy Design Videocast. For more information and downloads, visit smackhappy.com/videocast, where you'll find more episodes and the opportunity to subscribe on YouTube or iTunes. You can also sign up for our newsletter delivered to your inbox monthly. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues. Again, that's smackhappy.com/videocast. See you next time.